Hey, hey, hey. What you got to say? Hollywood? Nah, I'm just playing it. Shit Talking Sundays, because every day is Shit Talking Sundays. And this is Shit Talking with Sensible Chery. I'm definitely not Chery. I'm AG the dad. But we have Sensible Chery on as a host today because she is so passionate about the things that we love the most, our children. So because the show is so short and we have to cram a whole lot in 1 hour, I'm just going to get right to it. Sensible Chery, what's going down?
Morning.
Moaning.
It's good. It's all good. We got a lot of different things happening. Some of the things that we didn't get a chance to touch base with last week. So I thought we would just dive on in.
I'm on the diving board. Let's dive. Jump.
All right. Let's see. I think we did touch base about where we were at with the Menstrual Dignity Act in Oregon. And that is that the petition that I had filed was rejected by the state school board. And so at this point, which was my error, because when I had done that petition, what I didn't realize is that when they put the House bill through for the Menstrual Dignity Act, it actually went into law versus just a rule through an agency. So there's some verbiage in the law. So the only way that that can be changed is by going back through legislation. And so there are some people that are supposed to be spearheading it that I've been checking into. And so that's kind of where that's at right now. So until they go back into a session and until it actually is brought into session, nothing more will be able to happen with that. So you have districts right now where, this has had to do with the tampons in boys' bathrooms. And so I think different districts are doing different things, but by law, it was mandated that we had to have feminine hygiene products in all bathrooms, all genders, K through 12. And so that was just one of those excessive things that is not necessary to go to the degree that they did and spend $5.5 million for the first biennium and then 9.1 the next one. So that's where we're at with that. The next one that was, there was an article last week, and it had to do with a non-binary first grade teacher at one of our local schools. And so that one, there were parents that were concerned about that. There were other things mentioned in the classroom about black rainbows, and that they went on social, they were going by Slytherin on social media, which I believe is a Harry Potter reference. I'm not that familiar with it. And that there were like red eyes in the classroom and that kind of thing. And so when it comes to the response from that school district, it was a Medford school district, was that they don't discriminate. And I'd have to agree with that. We shouldn't be discriminating against people. And this is one of those battles that I've gone back and forth with. I've said that I don't necessarily care who teaches my child. I just want that person to be a good teacher. And so it shouldn't be based on, color or, all the things. They should just be a good teacher. But I question, if for our first graders, when we are dealing with a non-binary, that means they do not identify as either male or female. At what level are you starting to impact what we are teaching our children, and what should we be teaching our children?
Well, here's my kind of my, I don't know if you would call it an issue, but my question. I would say from kindergarten till ninth grade, kids are impressionable, and what they see sometimes is how they act. And because they may glorify it or praise it or whatever. I think that having a non-binary teacher, I'm not going to say I'm against it, because that would be discriminatory. But I do think that if somebody wants to be a teacher, maybe they should consider that the way a person appears to somebody can affect their mental growth. So as a kindergarten, first grade, maybe let's not teach there. I know that you can't discriminate, but maybe to ease some of the frustrations that some parents may have because their kids aren't old enough to ask the proper questions to their parents, to be able to be explained what they're interacting with and how and what's going on around them in their environment. So I would think that maybe if those individuals that choose to have that lifestyle, because it is a lifestyle, it's a choice. You're not born non-binary. I mean, I guess mentally you may be, because I don't want to argue that fact, but genetically you are born a particular sex. So for me, if you, because of the if you want to call it a mistake that humanity has put on you and made you feel that you're opposite of what you were born, then you know
what I question, though? I question what made you feel like you were opposite or neither of what you were born. Where does that come from? That's something that when we talk about how
it's like, for you, what makes you want to be with a man? You're a woman. Why do you want to be with a man and not a woman? I think it's just in our DNA that when you're born a particular sex, that you, it's just the way we in the genetic makeup for procreation.
Right.
We have to be attracted to the opposite sex to procreate. We can't be attracted to the same sex and procreate. That's why humanity still continues. I think that somewhere down the line, maybe, and please, if there's someone out there, come on the show or comment, and please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button, but come on and explain it to me or us. Everybody is curious to know. I don't object to somebody coming on and speaking their side, because for me, I have a hard time believing that you you just wake up one day and realize you're gay, because my whole life I've always looked at people as um, they're pretty, they're not pretty. I'm attracted to them, meaning girls, but I still say that's a handsome guy. He probably gets a lot of girls. I'm not attracted to them, and I think that's where the confusion comes, and in the process, because you could find somebody, um, I'm not going to say attractive. You could find somebody of the same sex as you, pretty if you're a girl, handsome if you're a man, I guess. But that doesn't mean you want to sleep with them, because you don't have that urge. But it's okay to admire art. You
Right.
know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If someone is ugly to you, they might be drop dead gorgeous
Mhm.
to somebody else. Trust and believe, because some of you women out there, I do not understand how you kiss some of these people in the mouth. Because I'm telling you, some of these guys I see y'all with, I'm going, oh my God. But anyway, and people might be saying the same thing about me when they see me with somebody, or a girl that I'm my girl with me. They might be like, what do you see in that guy? But I'm just
Well,
saying.
and that's just it though, that the so much of this just comes down to the sexual side of it, and that seems to be what we're focusing on. I think what the problem where we can start confusing our children is that we are bringing this into the elementary grades and sexualizing it at such a young level. And so to the point where it's just like, oh, if you like your girlfriend, you're hanging out with your girlfriend, you're super close with her, maybe you're more attracted to girls than guys just because you have a really good time with a particular sex doesn't mean that that's where it's going to lead. And this goes back to things that you have mentioned before when you get very blunt about, at the end of the day, you say that you're attracted to this person or what have you, do you want to sleep with them? Do you want to, what extent does that mean? And they're like, oh, well, no, I wasn't talking about that. And it's like, why are we correlating what you do sexually with who you're attracted to and who you are? And so I have a lot of close friendships that are female and male. And it doesn't mean that I'm attracted to my husband. And so that was a commitment that I made. When you make a commitment to someone, it's a commitment. And so I choose not to go any further with anybody else. And
Okay, so does that mean if you weren't married to your husband, because you leave it really open by
mhm,
saying, I am committed to my husband.
mhm.
So if you weren't married and you saw a woman who was attractive to you and she hit on you, you would entertain a relationship?
I would not. That does not mean that other people wouldn't.
Why
And
wouldn't you?
that's because I choose to stay in the dynamic of a male female relationship. Um, because it's one of those things like God made man and woman and he made them to be each other's helpers. And the idea of being attracted to the same sex, it's just it's one of the it's an it's a social abnormal. And so it's just like, are you dictating that what is normal by society is driving, while they deem man and woman, and that's why you're choosing that? It's the least complicated path. It is the path of procreation. It is the path um of like a yin and yang. It's just like the idea of even with magnets and stuff, you talk about, the same magnets, they have a tendency to repel each other. um and like I said, not to say that you couldn't allow yourself to be attracted to the same sex, um but it's an absolute choice you make. And so that's the side where, to go down
Okay.
and say that I have no control over who I fall in love with, that is not true. We make choices every day. And I'm sorry, you chose to fall in love with someone of the same sex. You
But
chose to have a relationship with them.
so then can we agree or disagree that, or does it, so with that statement, it kind of makes it sound like uh it's a mental condition because um maybe the wiring, for lack of a better word, is the wire. After having a concussion, I can see how people can think differently. Um, it's still hard
And
for me
that's
as a
different.
heterosexual.
There's
Yeah.
a reason
So,
though.
but can people be born, I guess, concussed, that they're already, that in their mind it's scrambled, and that's why people think that way,
I could
because they consider transgender a medical disability, right? Something like that, or
Well, it's gone back and forth. I think it was removed. I'm gonna have to look that up because it was removed as being like a mental illness. But I think it does fall into a line of like a condition, like dysphoria. They equate it to the equivalent of like anorexia and stuff
right,
like that. Like, and so I don't, but as far as it being like a disability in respect to like Down syndrome,
right.
I think they're saying no, it's not a disability like that. But it does have to do with your self-perception. And so, and what is driving that? And I think you're right. I think that there are things that we have done, um, or are doing medically, and other things that could cause people to potentially have attributes that they normally wouldn't. And so whether being more attracted to a female, or well, it's the whole more feminine or more masculine. But then it's like, why did we start putting walls around what's feminine and what's masculine? And so when you start hyper focusing on things, so if you start, well, women cook, men, whatever, men do, men do the dirty work, women do, the housework, or men like the out, like we've got this thing, my husband and I,
Traditional. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
he does most of the outside work. I do most of the inside work. And so then it's like you get this conditioning where it's just like, well, you're supposed to do the dishes and the cleaning and this, and then you're supposed to go outside and mow the lawn and water the lawn. But when we start getting to the point where those don't cross over, we put those walls up. Because like the other day, I left the house, the dishes. I'm like, honey, will you please do the dishes? Because like he never does the dishes. But guess what? I asked him to do the dishes and he did the dishes. And the same thing with the lawn. Like he's always got this thing that he should mow it, but he works all day. And so there's times when I'm home and I've mowed the lawn before, probably not the way he would like me to. And the same thing, like he doesn't do the dishes the way I would do them. But
Right.
that idea that we shouldn't be confined to these roles, that we have deemed for each other based on sex, based on
Mhm.
just the relationship itself. And that's where we need to work on those things. We need to break down those walls and barriers. And how much, if you didn't think that, well, I enjoy makeup or what have you, this whole thing, like I'm a girl and it's makeup, but if you put makeup on a boy, it's one of those things where makeup has been deemed something that women do. And yet you have actors that will wear makeup for particular things, why did we decide? We decided that makeup is associated with women. And so now if there is a man who somehow has an interest in makeup, that's an immediate wall, like, oh, you're not supposed to go there. That's a woman thing. That is not a man thing. So we've done those things.
It's funny. I saw a YouTube video. There was a black guy who was heterosexual. He liked women, but he liked acting and being a woman. He would go around and act really feminine, but he only wanted to sleep with women. And he is with a girl, a white girl, who um, is heterosexual, only wants to sleep with men, and but she identifies as a like she's like a tomboy. She's like hardcore, kind of like what you said. She wants to do all the outdoor work. She wants to do all the rugged stuff. He's like, oh my god, I want my nails done, and but it's just so weird to see a man act like a woman but still be the one that wants to be the dominant one in the bedroom. And I mean, is that's part of the reason why I say sex education should not be taught in elementary, and maybe the last semester of junior high is probably when it's probably a decent time to introduce, because up until 7th and 8th grade, we have to hold parents liable and responsible. You have to take control of your children, and you can't allow them to have sleepovers with opposite sex friends unsupervised. I'm not saying it's not okay to have friends have sleepovers. I'm saying it's not okay to have it unsupervised and allow them to just do whatever, especially at 7th and 8th grade, because that's when they're the most curious.
Right.
So to introduce transgender and non-traditional heterosexual ideas into their brains is not right. Now, and it may be strategic. It may be an agenda that somebody is pushing,
Well,
and
and
they have
that's what
figured it
they
out.
talk about, grooming our children.
Right.
That there's this big thing, and it's just like, yeah, why would you start putting those things in place and talking to kids about inappropriate things? Like, we have ratings on TV shows and stuff of things that aren't supposed to be appropriate for different ages.
We
And this
have
goes
those
back,
still.
yeah,
We have those still because
nobody pays attention to them.
I mean, when I remember growing up, and you couldn't say shit, and I mean that you couldn't say shit, you couldn't say damn, you couldn't say hell, and
Oh, you
now,
get soft porn on TV nowadays.
oh
It's like
man,
there's been things when I'm watching TV and it's just, like 6 o'clock, whether it's a commercial or a preview or even the previews that are in movie theaters. I'm like, this isn't appropriate. Like, why are we, you used to have to, it was way after hours before they would show some of the stuff that they show
right,
regularly
dude.
nowadays.
Hey, I was watching Game of Thrones. That show was on point.
I'm
And there's another one. I think it's called Spartacus, the TV series Spartacus. Oh my god, woo! Shit talking Sundays, because every day is shit talking Sundays. If you haven't seen those shows, shameless plug, y'all need to watch those two. Well, they're TV shows. Oh my god, woo. Those shows.
But that's the thing, it's so readily available. And
Right.
the problem is like, when it does come to our education, we do not talk about the long-term impacts of the choices that we make.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it leads into so many other things where we're talking about reproductive health, aka the right to have an abortion. That's the other thing, they start changing the verbiage and definitions, or making things sound prettier. Like we've had to discuss conversation about pedophiles. Oh no, they're minor attracted people now. Look that one up. It's just like, you put it in a pretty package and make it sound like it's not as awful as it can be, just to make it sound better, so that you get people accustomed to it. Like, oh no, that's not that bad. Like,
Hell
if
no.
you were to sit there and be like, oh, murdering humans, we could all probably get on the same page that murdering humans is bad. But then it's like, well, where does human life begin? Because for those that say it's at conception, an abortion equates to murder. But we don't say, oh, you're going to go to the murder clinic.
Right.
And they're even changing all that. It's the reproductive health care system now, as opposed to choose to murder an soon to be child. If we were to call it like it is, it doesn't sound so, oh, we can't call it that. Well, let's be real. Like, just be real. It's like you're doing what you're doing because you want to do it. You had sex, and there's always the
Okay.
exceptions. You
So
had sex, it was an inconvenience for you to get pregnant, which is actually something that comes from having sex.
you don't agree with abortion?
Not for me. I'm not,
Okay.
it's not my right to be
Okay.
able
Okay. Hold
to
on. Hold on.
tell.
Now,
But I will also say I am someone who has had one.
now
So,
you're married.
mhm.
Uh, God forbid you're out there and you get raped and got pregnant. Abortion or no abortion?
No abortion. Might put the child up for adoption.
So you would say that your husband has to go through life knowing that you fathered another man's baby?
If he can't man up to the fact that I was sexually violated and then a child came of that, he's got other issues. And he'd have an issue with me because you're then putting that guilt on the woman as if it's her fault.
Okay.
Um, like that's a slippery. And I understand what you're saying. Like, then you're dealing with 9 months of, oh my gosh, somebody, you know what I mean? They physically assaulted
I mean,
my
it's in
wife.
both your faces for the whole
Right, right.
duration of the
And
pregnancy.
that's
So,
a very personal choice,
right.
and that's the thing. Like that is a personal choice. There are some people that would not be able to handle that. And this is the part of having free will. We all have the free will to make those decisions. But I also have to take into consideration that that child that would have been inside of me, it is not their fault on how they were created. And there have been plenty of children that were the outcome of rape that have gone on to do great things. And vice versa. You know what I mean? It's just like there is no guarantees. And so everybody has to make their choices, but you have to go to bed at night with the choices you make.
Right.
And so, there is an instance, like there could be a dynamic where if a woman gets raped and then she chooses to not abort that child and then her husband couldn't handle it, or maybe she decides that she even wants to keep the child, and the husband can't handle it. This all comes down to the choices we make, and we need to be accountable and understand the ramifications of the choices we make and the impact they have on others.
Right.
And other people also need to be understanding of the choices that someone else makes and whether they're willing to accept that. Where that's the side, if we stopped looking at, oh, like you get drunk, you have a good time and you have sex, and it's just like, no big deal. If you really plan that out and think, okay, if I make a choice to have unprotected sex, or even if you choose to have protected sex, that doesn't always work. This is a possible outcome. Am I going to be able to handle it? Why don't we think like that? Why don't we really like, okay, I'm going to speed. I'm going to text while driving. I'm going to, drink and, I'm doing things, and here's the outcome. How is it that we so blatantly, flippantly just ignore it? Is it because we get away with it once? Is it, what causes and then all of a sudden when it happens, you get the ticket or something, and it's just like, and it's just like, and then you're all irritated and mad about it. And you see people that get pissed off at police officers, for pulling them over. And it's like, well, you were freaking speeding. There's like so many things that happened ahead of time that we could take accountability for, and it would make everything different. I like this morning, it's the stupid things. Like I had it was to replace the batteries of the temperature thing. Thank you. And
Mhm.
so I went to change the batteries, and I go in the closet, and I've got two battery things. The batteries are in need or under another one. It's like this hodgepodge of mess, and I get all irritated, and I'm like, why am I getting irritated? Because there was so many things that played into that I could have prevented. Like if I had the batteries where I wanted them, if I had put the other thing away that didn't belong there, start thinking about what goes into the things that flare you up, and if there's something you personally can do about it. If I end up getting pregnant
Mhm.
because I am having, sex unprotected, that is my fault. It's my choice and my fault. Stop trying to put the blame on everybody else for decisions that we make when we can do something about them.
Okay. Now, your choice, you decide to have the baby, right? The
Mhm.
baby is born. Fast forward 15 years. Now the child is 15 years old. Mom, this guy isn't my dad. Where's my dad and why isn't he around? You tell him what happened. Do you tell your child they're the product of being raped? I mean, how do you explain that to the child so that the child can have a normal life? Because I would have to think that a child brought into this world knowing that they were a product of rape mentally would be a challenge for the child. Not saying that does that mean that they don't deserve a right to have life, to have those feelings and all that, but that's where it's such a gray area that maybe in rape situations, and I'm sure that this isn't every situation, but when a person is raped, the morning after pill should be an option given to them immediately, just because, so you don't have to worry, not necessarily worry about that. I'm not condoning abortion or saying abortion is good or bad. I'm not going to take that stance. I do believe it is everybody's individual choice, and you have to meet your maker and stand before them or him, and deal with that. So for me, I just believe the separation of the church and state, where look, too much control has been happening, has been given to the government to the point where they control too many walks of our life. So
Mhm.
for me, um, when they when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and made abortion illegal now, that's just one
They
more
didn't
step.
no, see, that's the thing though, don't get it twisted. They didn't make it 100% illegal. They left it up to the individual states.
States, right? But
Mhm.
they still they still are outlawing it to a certain extent. They're
But who was the Supreme Court to ever justify murder? Because I'm sorry, that's what it comes down to. People want to have that battle, you know what I
Mhm.
mean, as to when life begins. But the bottom line is that law created the ability to justify murder at some point. Because if that fetus comes to term, which most of the time it will become a life and a baby. So that law only allowed for people to legally murder without having to worry about repercussions. So now that law from the supreme level has been removed, and so now individual states can make that call as to what they want for their state.
Mhm. That makes
And if
more
it's,
sense.
that's why everyone's flocking to Oregon, because we have the lowest requirements at all. You don't even have to be a licensed practitioner in order to perform an abortion by law in this state. How healthy is that? We allow abortions up to 9 months. In regards to the battle of whether they should be allowed or not, I don't agree with them. I certainly don't agree with them at 9 months. You talk about like your morning
Mm-mm.
after pill, if that's you know what I mean? That is something that is readily available in a lot of cases. I think a lot of the states, once this law went back 22-ish week, 20-ish, 22, 20 to 24 weeks is pretty much the, okay, up to that point, they allow for that. Sometimes there's other exceptions like rape. I know there's a few states that have that, regardless of the time frame. If it was a rape situation, they have a little bit more leniency. But I mean, why couldn't we come together at the table and make a decision? And if there is one state that's what they want, maybe, you know what I mean? And that's where you go, and maybe people decide to move out of that state. I mean, you've got your Sodom and Gomorrah, and so there's always going to be that's always going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea of whether it's going to be done underground, I think that's their justification, is that, oh well, then women are going to be going on to these, back alley clinics, and that's not healthy for them. Well, you know what? Let's not forget, except for the exceptions like rape, you made a choice to have sex. And if your protection failed, that's one thing. But I'm sure more of them have to do with unprotected sex, period. So let's start making better choices. And let's educate our kids on making better choices and understanding those long-term consequences. And I think where we got off track, but like you were talking about, who do you tell that child? I think the bottom line is how that child grew up and if that child truly felt loved. If you and how you treat them. Waiting to 15, maybe they knew it all along and it wasn't, as significant. There's the age appropriateness, but if that child was treated differently because they were a product of rape, that is more likely to be what causes them to have long-term side effects or an impact, versus if they grew up in a loving home and it's like, oh my gosh, even though I was born out of a horrible situation, these people loved me and cared for me and treated me no different. That I think is where the difference is, which comes down to the choices we make again. How are we treating people? And just because you don't agree with people doesn't mean you should be able to have conversations and disagree with people. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I have to hate you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've got, I think the other thing, like when you talk about the dynamic of, rape and stuff, we've got this whole transgender bathroom thing going on, which they're starting to create these plans of schools and stuff where they've got this intertwined, like they've got the girls and boys stalls in the same room and then like an open sink. That is something that we're starting to see now. And this whole bathroom dynamic of being able to choose your own bathroom, I'm on the side of, you know what, let's go to the just a gender neutral bathroom, either single room, single stall, or if you're going to have multiple stalls, it should be those with the same parts. I mean, when you get into a dynamic of, it's just like where we go and people are like, well, you should be able to go in however you identify. You should be able to go into the bathroom you identify have. I'm like, no, you should be able to go into the bathroom with the parts that you have. Because for those that, if that's their choice, their life, who they think they are, they truly physically feel like they are of the opposite sex of the genitalia they have, that is fine. But you are now putting people of the opposite sex in the same dynamic, and somebody who doesn't have pure intentions and that's not who they are, you are now opening it up so that our children are vulnerable, can be forced into situations that they would not have had to be in if we just kept the bathrooms separated, or create a dynamic so that every bathroom is an individual stall. I'm sure that there's plenty of kids that would love that. Do you know how many kids are constipated in school because they just don't want to go and use the bathroom? I mean, that's a big deal. Like, I don't want somebody next to me if I'm going number 2. I think it took me into my 30s, mid 30s before I cared anymore. I'm like, I could care less. If I'm in the bathroom to go to the bathroom, I'm going to the bathroom. And it's like, but there's this, you've got etiquette where it's just like, oh, the rule. If you're going to the bathroom to do number two, and if there's somebody that's in there and you haven't quite gone yet and they're still in there, it's like, you should go, because that's what they're, it's like this stupid stuff that we do.
Right, right. Man, just in society, the way that everything is going, it's every people are trying to control too much. Government is trying to control too much of everybody's day to day. Abortion, I think, will be a hard topic forever, only because you have so many different views. But I do agree that a fetus is life as soon as it's it starts to process. Heartbeat, what does that come at? 8 weeks? 6 weeks?
Yeah.
8 weeks?
Right.
So
I think I think it just got earlier, or maybe it's the 6 week side.
Look, people who are practicing safe sex, they know if they are pregnant or if there's a chance,
right,
because something broke, they didn't use it. We all know that the withdrawal method is not the method that is 100%. It's probably 30%, 40%. Maybe even 50%. You're rolling the dice. It's
right.
definitely not 100%, far from. So depending on the level of how you're doing it, after 30 days, I honestly believe that the fetus is a baby, and it's definitely viable. People do lose their pregnancies after 30 days. Happens, probably more than we'd like to talk about. But that sometimes it's because of overactivity, doing too much. That's why they lose it. So people know. So maybe, all right, you got 30 days. Maybe I can agree with that. But me, as a grandparent who has had a grandbaby who was only 20 something weeks and spent 6 months in ICU, and literally from the bottom of the foot to the top of his head was smaller than my hand. His whole entire body, including his fingers and his whole hand and fingers, were no bigger than my fingernail. The hand and the fingers, my fingernail. Let that sink in, and that baby still survived. So when people say that, oh, we'll have an abortion at 4 months,
right,
that baby was 4 months and he survived. And
right.
so, yes, abortion is a form of murder, in my opinion. When is it okay? Everybody has to face their maker there. Does the baby have rights? Absolutely. And people like yourself, and I can see you're passionate about it, you fight for their rights. And I don't have any problem with that. I just feel that, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who morally wants to help you with that situation, whether it's help you to get an abortion or help you to see the pregnancy through to the end.
Well, and there are so many people that are on like adoption lists too, and it's just the idea that we make it so complicated for people to even be able to adopt children, and dynamics like who should be able to adopt a child and stuff like that. And so, if we were to really lay this out there and really think about it, and the ramifications, because you don't think about it's so easy to sit up there and fight for a woman's ability to choose, but just like there's so many women that'll sit up there and be like, I don't want any man deciding for my body. Well, you know what, there's plenty of women that are fighting for your right to choose that have never had an abortion. And so, as you sit up there and you fight and you don't necessarily know that, and there's plenty that have and that are still fighting for it because they believe that was right for them. But you have no idea the long-term psychological impacts that may be underlying subconscious that you deal with. They talk about like women with overeating and stuff like that. Those decisions and choices we make, if we don't face them, we bury them. You're just like, oh, I was just, it was just an health reproductive system thing I was doing. It was no big deal. I was doing, but there's a part of you that acknowledges what you did. And so when we talk about, dealing with symptoms, so much of what we're dealing with in this life has to do with symptoms, overeating, bad test scores, in some instances, poverty or behavior, or there are different things that are just symptoms of choices. And there's a root cause. And until we can really dive in and face the root cause, we are in this perpetual cycle of self-sabotage, and we don't even know it.
Mhm.
What causes you to flare up? I had shared a post that I tagged you in this weekend. It was like, what are those quirky things that you do that you don't even know why you do them? And so like one of mine, like I have favorite pens. It's weird. Don't ask me why. Like I've got certain pens that I like. I just like the way they write. That's one thing. But there's another side of it where I'll have pens that I have to use for, like, I have a journal and I'd use one pen for that journal. And when that pen is not around, like I loot, like, where's the pen? Like, it's this and so it's just like I was sitting there, I'm like, what is the deal? And so if you self-reflect as to your why, and I'm like, well, there were times in my life where I didn't have control over the things that were going on. And for me, that ability to control that, I want to use that pen and that's my choice. There's things like that come out, like people that have talked about, they go into rooms and they sit in a particular space. I think that this might apply to men more, but here we go, making judgments on sex. But like I've noticed a lot more men want to face the exit. They want to be able to see what's coming in if danger is coming in or something. It's like a protection thing. And like, you have people that want to face doors or windows, and it's just like there's a reason for that, like not wanting to face a wall that could relate to, needing to be able to escape. I was in bad situations when I was younger in relationships and I couldn't get out. So I could see, those are those internal root causes where, why do I always have to face the door? Well, mentally you are, fixed on this fact. I need to be able to get out. I need to be able to escape.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because when you sent me that text, and I told you nothing that I could think of at the moment, but the fact you said that, yes, I have to sleep the closest to the door in every situation. If I'm in a hotel, if I'm in a restaurant, I always sit with my back, with my facing the door. I always have to see what's coming in. The reason I do that isn't because I need to be able to escape. I do it because I want to know what's coming in so I can prepare or defend against it if necessary.
Right.
And it's so funny because that's a natural alpha instinct, because that's what dogs do. The alpha, the leader of the pack, will situate itself in the best position to be able to guard the pack.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, some of those you
so
can't.
All the alpha males are clumped up in a corner of a room.
Yeah, they're all sitting in a room. Hey, if you walk in, you notice that most men, I mean, pay attention, people out there.
Yeah.
When you go to a restaurant, you'll notice that you'll find that most men are facing towards the door and most women have their back to the door. Now, I don't know if that's strategic for men to be like, hey, I don't want you guys, checking out my girl while you're walking and staring at her. So you just got to walk on past. But remember this, guys, if your girl is facing the other way, as they pass by, your girl is checking out the guys. Okay, just letting you know. If you want to have your back, you know, always to the wall. Your girl, when the guys and girls are passing by, they're checking them out. They're looking, going, "Ooh, I got booty view." So remember that, fellas. So maybe you might want to switch up and think about it. I'm just playing. Don't let that change how you think,
Right,
because
right.
security is important. That's why, just like when I got a dog, I got a Belgian Malinois. I bring him on the show or in the background all the time. But that dog instinctually will try to find the best spot to protect the family. So, speaking of him, hey buddy, how you doing? Come here. This is my Belgian Mallie. Come here, over here. Come here. Anyway, and and I have a little girl too. Just letting everybody know, little girl. This is Hildy. All right, get out of here. But anyway,
Well, we do those weird things. Like, I would love for people to kind of like, what's their thing? What's your thing that you know, the cabinets? Like, I know that was one. Like, I am notorious for leaving cabinets open and leaving lids off of things, and then mad when something spills. You know, like making sure that chairs are pushed in. Some people don't. Like, there's all these little like subconscious things that we do,
right.
and we just don't even like think about it. Or even like, you know, they do that with like when you're eating and stuff. If you know, people that are overeating, like emotional eaters and stuff like that, when do you do that? Is it when you're mindlessly watching the TV? Do we not, you know, it's like there's so many things. If we just were to take a few minutes, and it's just like when you feel yourself getting irritable or you feel your mood changing, because if we're supposed to be happy, all like if we could have you know, peace beyond understanding and be happy and joyful all the time, there's people that are able to do that through all their circumstances. Why? And
Mhm.
so it's acknowledging and being aware of things that take away your joy and take away your happiness, and either you remove them or you figure out how to not let them impact you. You know, you have a
Right.
choice. You can't control what other people do, but you can control your reaction. And I'm seeing that in my son. You know, this is stuff that I've been learning over the last few years. And I'm seeing, you know, my son's coming into his own at 10 years old, and he's starting to have some significant opinions and get attitudes about things and just be mad about certain things. And it's just like when I look at him and then think about, man, like, why are you letting that upset you right now? You know, it's like I can see him like freaked out on his game or something, like something. And I'm like, why are you so freaked out? And, you know, and or why do you get so mad about certain things? And it's just like and the idea of not being able to control it. Because I know like
Mhm.
he's not a super fan of reading aloud. He's like people staring at me. And it's like, why? Where does that fear come from? Just just face it and let it go. Um, because the only like most of the stuff that we are fearful of are it's so ridiculous, like talking in public, and so much of it is just not being prepared or not having enough practice at doing it. You know, even this whole podcast, I am so grateful for you, because it was something that had been on my heart to do, and don't even know how many people listen, but it's meant for whoever listens to it. You know, I learned a long time ago that we are such attention seekers, and it's just like, oh my gosh, how many likes, how many people have watched it. And I every now and then I'll go back and look, but I really don't, because the reality of it is that this was on my heart as something that I should be doing, and I want to help give other people a voice. And so maybe only one person ever watches this, maybe more, or maybe 10 do, but it only impacts one. It only takes one person to make a change.
Mhm.
And we have a tendency to have things brought into our life that we need, especially when we're asking for them. And so the idea that, you know what, if you don't like this podcast, guess what? It wasn't meant for you. You
Right.
know, it's just like whoever this podcast is meant for, they are going to hear it, they're going to listen to it, and it's going to mean something to them. And
Right.
so I can't worry about, you know, all of the people that, you know, even to the point like YouTube, they did the whole thing where they no longer show thumbs down. You know, we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. The reality of it is, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. I'm here for a reason.
Right.
and I'm going to do what is put in front of me to do. And then whoever is meant to be part of it, they'll be there. And those who aren't, they won't.
Yeah, that's why
That's
I started this podcast. For me, um, if I affect one person's life for the positive, then it's all worth it. The very first episode that I ever did was with a pastor out here in Sacramento, Pastor Phil, and I aired the podcast the day after my father passed away. And the day my father passed away, which was the day before the first airing, we were supposed to record. That morning, I called my dad, said, "Hey, I'll call you after the gym, and we're going to shoot my first podcast." My father passed away that day, later, right after I got back from the gym, and I wasn't able to do the podcast that I wanted to do. But you know, for me, it's all about experiences. You know, don't let anything change the direction you want to go in life. You know, you are you control your destiny. If you decide that today, actually, let me back up. Here's the problem that I have with the New Year's. Everybody wants to make a New Year's resolution and talk about it all through the year and want to enact it on the first of the year. Why wait? If I wanted to wait to the beginning of the year to start my podcast, who's to say in the beginning of the year something else isn't going to be in the way to prevent me from doing it? So if you want to do it, take action. You have to do it now. If you want to be an average person, you think about, if I'm behind, I use sports as an analogy. If you're in the fourth quarter, you've got 10 minutes left, you're down by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and you're an average person, you're going to think it's already over. We haven't scored anything enough in the last 3 quarters. What is 1 quarter going to do to allow us to make all 3? But if you went gung-ho from the sound of the first whistle until the very last whistle, who's to say that your defense won't hold them to it and your offense won't score 4 touchdowns and beat them all in 1 quarter? Because it's always happened.
The epitome of the upset.
Yeah. People forget that shit happens and we control it by taking the first step. If you don't take that first step and be willing to be exceptional, people that are on a professional team don't train once a week, once a month. They eat, sleep, and shit talking Sundays what they do every single day, because every day is shit talking Sundays. And that's why I say that. That's why it's the plan. You have to do whatever it is that you want to do. You have to do 110% every single day, because you affect the outcome. If you tell yourself every day, I can't do it.
Right. You're right.
But if I tell myself every day and I write a plan that every day I want to talk to 5 people, I want to say, God bless you to 5 people, or every day I want to say hello to 5 people, you first have to take that first step to say hi to 1 and set your goal and do it. But a lot of people say, they just talk.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing my business next month. Next month comes. Hey, man, you starting that business? Yeah, man, in a couple of days. I'm just waiting on so-and-so. Well, so-and-so never shows up. Hey, man, did you ever start that? No, man, because so-and-so never showed up. Well, why do you keep putting your future in the hands of somebody else? Your future has to be in the hands of you, the one who controls you, because you are the one who's responsible for your outcome. Just like Sensible Chery says, if you decide to have unprotected sex and you get pregnant, then you and your partner made a choice to do something that you knew has a consequence. But because everybody only wants to look at the positive consequences, which is that few seconds of fellatio, people aren't considering the 18 years of responsibility
or
that you
more.
have for that. No, you're only responsible for 18 years. After
but you
that,
still might have to deal with it after that. Trust me.
yes, but you don't have to. Now that is also a choice of
It
yours
is.
and
You're
anybody.
right.
You are responsible for 18 years. And the reason why I'm so adamant about that is because I have a deadbeat in my life. My kid's mom is a deadbeat, and I have no problem saying it because she don't help. So if you're listening out here, yes, I'm calling you a deadbeat. You are a deadbeat mom. You do not come and help your kids ever. You haven't helped your kids in 8 years, 9 years. Okay, so for me, you're a deadbeat, and I apologize to my sons for that. But hey, man, I spit facts, and if you are a deadbeat, it's never too late. Remember, adulting is hard. And if your significant other has any sensibility like Sensible Chery does, they would be always open to you trying. But you can't come back into somebody's life crying wolf all the time. Do what you mean, say what you mean, and you will see your life will change. But if you sit back always putting the blame on somebody else, you are never going to achieve anything but be miserable. And misery loves company. So you will be in great company with a bunch of miserable
Miserable
people
people.
until you take the first step to change that. Remember, in life, they always tell you, sometimes life gives you lemons, so make lemonade.
Or a margarita.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Sometimes you got to get creative with the lemons you get and just make something, utilize what is given to you, because don't look at it from a bad thing, even though it's sour. Great things have come from lemons.
That's right.
So,
well, on that note,
yes,
I think our time is up.
Our time is up. We want to thank everybody who tuned in. This is every Monday at 9 a.m. with that lady over there, Sensible Chery. She's on the school board in Oregon, and she fights hard for our children, our kids, and keeps you informed of what's coming down in the pipeline, positive and negative. And that could be a matter of interpretation based on how you feel. I can honestly say that Sensible Chery has changed my view a little bit on abortion and rape. Rape is bad, 100%, 1,000%, 1,000,000%, but you have shown me that it can be, you could turn a negative situation and turn it into a positive educational experience. And yes, I can understand and believe that if you show compassion and love, that can change the outcome of a bad situation. If you're lost, go back, watch the podcast from the beginning, and you'll understand what I'm saying, because it was a little deep today, especially for me thinking about it. I want to thank
we're
you.
We're getting to the point where if you want to keep up to where we're at, you got to go back and watch the other episodes.
This seems like we're just carrying on from the last episode. But thank you again. We couldn't do this show without you. I know you say you couldn't do the show without me, but yes, you could. You just don't know how to do it, and I'm not going to give you the tools to do it because I'm enjoying doing the show. So let's continue doing it. Please, everybody, like, share, hit that notification button. Please subscribe. Let's grow together. Let's get the word out. And remember, stand up for your kids. If you don't, get the hell out of the way so we can, because Sensible Chery is definitely speaking up for our children. Thanks again. I made you the dad, that's Sensible Chery. and we will see you next week. Peace.